Welcome to all of our
Thank you.
listeners, and I am thrilled to introduce you to Christina Maleka. Hi, Christina.
Hi, sorry, how are you?
I am good. It is great to have you on Conversations About Boundaries. When I met you, I was very interested in the work that you do. So let's give a little background. You're a therapist, correct?
Yes, I'm a psychotherapist. That's my day job.
Yes. How long have you been a psychotherapist?
About 16 years. And
Okay.
before I was a therapist, I was a community organizer. So I'm really into being helpful.
Okay. We have a lot of listeners that are also really into being helpful. So
Okay.
you're going to be a good fit for them. So you do digital mindfulness retreats. How do you define digital mindfulness?
Well, I think that we are distracted, right? Technology is extremely distracting. It takes up a lot of our time. Some of it is a little addictive. A lot of it is made to keep our eyes on it. And so we can kind of get into this state of, have you ever had the experience where you go online to do something quick and then 2 hours later you're down this rabbit hole and you're like, I don't know what happened.
Right.
So mindfulness is the opposite of distraction. On a very simple level, what I do is I help people apply mindfulness skills to their use of technology. So, for all of us, so that we can just be more intentional and have more agency around our use of technology. So
I love thinking about the concept of, to just think of it as distracted, which is so easy to be
of course,
online.
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the whole thing is set up to be one large distraction.
It actually is. I mean, Facebook leadership has admitted that they are intentionally doing intermittent positive reinforcement with us to give us those little dopamine hits, kind of like having a slot machine on your phone.
To reinforce the distractedness to
Right.
stay online, to keep us kind
Exactly.
of
So a
hooked
lot of it is
online.
meant to keep our eyes on it and to keep us hooked on it. So,
Right.
yeah.
And so when you do digital mindfulness retreats, what do you see happens for people that take this break with you?
I love doing my retreats. So when I start people out with, I take away their phones for a weekend. And I start out with asking people to write on a note card who or what they want to be more present for. And we sort of have this
Mm.
ritualistic, give up your phone, stand up and talk about who or what you want to be more present for. So we start with that
Mm.
intention. So nice. And then I drop people into their five senses. We spend my retreats are at beautiful spots in nature, like the Whitby Institute. So we spend a lot of time outside. My retreats are really made for people who might be new to meditation and mindfulness. So I do some really basic meditation with people. I have a big exercise where I encourage people to explore their emotional relationship with technology. So
Wow.
what do you post? How do you want to feel when you post that? What do you want people to think about you? And just,
Wow. This is a deep
it's a
exploration.
deep exploration to just get people to think about, when you have an emotional need that you're trying to get met on social media, which is okay. I want to be really clear that I'm not anti-tech. This stuff is important in our lives and we need to figure out how to have balance with it. But I think it's important to really think about, what's that emotional need? And can I make sure that I'm also getting that met with people face to face?
Oh, I love
Yes,
this. I
in an,
love this.
yeah, in an embodied way. And then, what do I want people to think about me? We just show little parts of ourselves on social media. So I really ask people to think about that and to think about who really knows you? Who are you? Where can you be your whole, complicated,
Mm.
messy self? So that's a big piece of it.
This is really important because in order for people to have boundary development, they have to have what I call a lot of reflective processes
Yes.
where it makes you more aware or it makes you more mindful, whatever people's word for that is. And I really appreciate what you're saying because you take people on this journey to really reflect very deeply. It's not just I've stayed away from my phone for the weekend.
No, it's really meant to leave people with like skills and tools and to feel empowered.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, that you're taking them deep into a reflection process about their relationship online
Yeah.
and what they're trying to achieve and what's happening for them and where else they can get that met. That is fascinating. And I know that since you're a therapist, I know you wouldn't do it unless you saw results.
Oh no. I mean, people, the other thing I just want to say that I do is I also have a really concrete part where I give people a bunch of different skills and tools they can use to have more balance with technology. So people leave with a concrete plan for how they can have more balance. I love group process. I love facilitating groups. I've had a lot of experience with that. And there are results. People get close. That's the other piece, is how often do we get to talk with strangers? How often do we get to develop a relationship with people that we just met? And, we do a lot of dyadic work. We do a lot of people talking one-on-one. And we also have meals together without technology. And so there's laughter, there's bonding. My last cohort for my last retreat came over to my house for lunch. One of the participants, two of them, cooked this incredible meal. And we all got together to talk about, what changes people have made and how
Now,
they're
I
doing.
have to ask you something, because like back in the day, I'm like, older, and back in the day I grew up
So am
without
I.
all this. I grew
Me
up without all
too.
this. And
Yeah.
and so the skills that you're talking about are relational skills
Yes.
that were the only ways to make connection back
Exactly.
then. And so I'm curious about, who you see as being more attracted to this. Like, is it kind of the younger generation who really has only known this, or is it also kind of a mix of people like, who are older, who feel caught up and lost in it?
It's interesting. It's everybody. So I have had people from 25 to 70 on my retreats. I think that people have different reasons for coming to it. I think people who are younger and have never really known anything different are just really curious. What is this like? And for younger people, sometimes it's scarier. I'm a therapist, so I can help people like with emotional regulation and self-soothing if they do feel really uncomfortable. Although I have to say, I talked to a journalist recently and she kept asking, do people freak out? Do people freak out? I'm like, no, we're all capable. No one freaks out. One of my participants, her testimonial was, I thought this was going to be people crying and saying, I don't have a problem.
Oh my gosh.
But I loved every minute of it. So
Oh
anyway.
my gosh. This is great to hear that it's also addressing people of all different ages, because I think we're all caught up in this. There is no way to be on the planet right now and not be wondering about your own kind of mindfulness around the online world, and it brings up lots of questions for us. And I love the work that you're doing. So, what do you think will help people increase their digital mindfulness? Like, what are some beginning steps that you think people can take,
Right.
who are starting to listen to this interview and are curious?
Right. Well, one thing I will say, and you can put this on your website, is that I created, I'm going to do this. I created this do-it-yourself guide to your own at-home digital mindfulness retreat that people
Oh
can get
my
from my
gosh.
website.
Yay. So people can get this from your website?
Yeah, because I want my work to be accessible. And I know that not everybody can afford a weekend retreat. I'm doing a 1-week retreat. My collaborator, Christina and I are doing a 1-week retreat in Mexico next year. And I know not everyone can
And when you
afford
say next year, you mean 2020?
2020.
Yeah. Okay.
Not everyone
Great.
can do that. And so I wanted to make this accessible. So I created this DIY guide for people to use to do their own retreat.
And can you just share a couple tips from that for people that are listening?
Yes, absolutely. So the number one tip, a couple of really important tips. One is to make your bedroom a tech-free zone. So no devices in your bedroom. And when I say this to people, they say, but my phone is my alarm clock. And I'm like, get an alarm clock. Go to Walgreens, get a $10 alarm clock. So what this does is first of all, when we look at screens, when we look at the blue light on our screens before we go to bed, it disrupts our melatonin production. It kind of tricks our body into thinking it's daylight. So having those screens can really impact our sleep and our circadian rhythms. And so I recommend that people just have some time before they go to bed to maybe read, meditate, stretch. People ask about e-readers, and e-readers are generally, they have a different kind of screen. So those are fine as long as you don't go on the internet on them. So having that peace before you go to bed, I think also, I don't know about you, but if I check my email before I go to bed, I often regret it because there's something there that stresses me out. And it's hard to fall asleep. And then the other side of that is waking up in the morning without immediately getting on your phone.
Yes, I like to wake up in the morning and get into my journal. But if
I
my
do that
phone
too.
but if my phone is there, I also check my phone. And I love your idea of keeping the phone out of the bedroom. I'm going to do that immediately.
Yeah.
Because I would prefer not to even dive into that till later.
Yeah, and also, we go on social media, we check our email, and it puts us a little bit in this sympathetic nervous system state, right? A little fight or flight, a little adrenaline, and starting your day without just jumping into that stream of online content is a really great thing to do.
So many people who have adult kids or kids in college, and they keep their phone on all the time to listen to messages from them or need to call them. It's like this, permanent umbilical cord of you have to be accessible.
Right.
And you care about your kids, right? You want to know, oh my gosh, you need something. But it's we're all walking around on call to each other. And that includes through the night to
Absolutely.
people. So what do you recommend about that? How do you see that?
Interestingly, I recommend, so here's the thing. I don't have, another recommendation I have is to turn off notifications on your phone. Because every time you get a notification, it's sort of stressful. You just get a little bit of adrenaline.
That's cool. Wait, and I gotta add that I am sure for the college kids and the adults, young adults, it's just as annoying to have to be on call to their parents all the time.
Absolutely, they're adults. Do some differentiation.
Right. It just must making them as nuts too.
Right.
Okay, so turn off notifications.
And one thing I want to say about
sleeping,
that,
right?
When you're sleeping, I don't have notifications on my phone, and I keep my phone on silent most of the time, and I never forget to check it. I mean, we are trained. It's not like I forget to check to see if I've gotten a voicemail or a text or an email or if someone's liked something on social media. At this point, it's safe to just put it away for a while. The other thing that's sort of related to this is to charge your phone in a separate room. So, kind of make it into a landline. So when I get home from work, I charge my phone in a separate room, and I don't have it right by me, because one of the easiest things you can do to decrease how much time you're just picking up your phone is to have it out of your reach. So putting your phone out of your reach.
Now, I think there is something on the phone. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's something on the phone that can track how many times you're checking it.
Yeah, there is.
Do you recommend that people do that to get more aware of what they're doing?
I do. I know that I have an iPhone, and so I know it has a screen time feature where on Sunday it gives you a little message for how much time you've spent online or spent on your phone.
Who would be afraid to hear that?
I know. I mean, I have to say that it's not like I'm perfect. I'm helping people with this, but I struggle too with keeping, my technology. And these tips are things that I use that have really helped me to find balance. So
it's good feedback. It's just like people who wear the little bracelets, figure out how many steps they have and if they're getting enough sleep. This could be a worthwhile challenge and feedback message. Even if you feel a little bit of shame around it, it may also be a wake-up call.
Right. And one of the things that's really important to me is to not shame people, because I think
you don't use that as a strategy.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that people feel bad. I think we've only just had this technology around for about 10 years, the smartphones and social media,
Hard to believe.
the explosion. I know. And I think that people see what I'm doing, and I have a lot of people say, oh, I know I should do that, but, and I want to empower people. I don't want to shame people.
Right.
We're just now figuring out how to manage all of this, and that's
And
totally.
I just think that, well, we wouldn't use shame as a strategy. I'm pretty sure that deep inside, some of us feel a little bit of shame around how this has taken over our lives,
Right.
our time together.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't help but notice that things are so different relationally between people with this
Right.
technology in the middle of everything.
Yeah. It's interesting. Another tip that I have is when you're out to dinner with friends, you know how sometimes people will put their phone on the table, right?
Hate that.
So,
Just rolled my
right,
eyes. Hate that.
right.
Yeah.
So one person I really recommend reading is Sherry Turkle. She is at MIT. She's a psychologist. She has studied for years the interaction between humans and technology. And
Mm.
she has a book called Alone Together, which is really great. And then she has another book called Reclaiming Conversation. Uh, and
Wow.
she cites some research was that just having a phone in the room decreases the quality of conversation, because there's always it's a representation of a possible interruption, and when we know that there's a possible
Mm.
interruption, we don't go as deep in our conversations. So another tip that I have is to put your phone in your bag, put it away when you're having social time with friends, and of course turn off the sounds on it. Another thing that's really important to me is not to just take something away from people, because I also want to give people things, ideas for what they could fill that time with. What is a thing that you've been wanting to make time for forever? What are your values? What
Mm.
brings you joy? What brings you happiness? So we can't just take away someone's technology or help them to find balance with technology without giving them something else. Helping people to tap into how they want to be spending that 4 hours a day. That's the average time Americans spend on their phone.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh my gosh. And I'm thinking in my head, mine might even be more.
Yeah.
I'm not like rolling my eyes at everybody else here, people. I'm like, four
No.
hours. What if mine's more? Oh
Right.
gosh.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then there's all this kind of pressure to people to stay online if they're business owners. There's been this whole move with, how they do their digital marketing and social media and all the different platforms to be on. Like, people are horrified like that I'm not on Instagram or Twitter, but
Mhm.
I don't have time to be on all these different social platforms.
I think it's interesting because for those of us who didn't grow up with this, before social media came along, I had this rich, full life. I was busy. I had a lot of things to do. And so it's been harder. It's been harder to integrate that. Yeah, for me, I want to move into being in the digital age without losing some things. One of them is just face-to-face relational, empathetic conversation. And the other one, there's several things. Boredom. I don't want to lose boredom. Boredom is really important. And we are losing boredom because whenever we're bored, we can just pick up our phone. And
Mhm.
boredom is so important for creativity, for insight, for learning more about yourself. And we're kind of moving away from being able to tolerate boredom. Like I tell people, when you're in line for coffee, when you're walking down the street, when you're sitting in a waiting room, when you're on mass transit, try to do it without looking at your phone. Look around you, notice what's happening, take in your environment. That way we can reclaim boredom. We can reclaim, looking up at the sky and lying in the grass. Because I think that's a super important piece that I don't want to lose.
Such a big part of creativity.
Yeah.
It's just those pauses in the mind
Yeah.
where there isn't anything else, you
Or
know?
feeling uncomfortable, allowing yourself to feel uncomfortable and to feel a feeling and to just let it flow through you and see how that transforms if you just stay with it. I don't want to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important part of being human for me. I think that there are sort of four things that are related to boundaries with technology. One of them is our boundaries with each other and how technology has changed our boundaries with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I often hear people say, I set a boundary. And what they really did is they just ghosted someone or blocked them on their phone. And sometimes we have to do that for our safety.
Right. But boundaries are so much bigger than that. It's not just
yeah,
that. That's a
avoidance.
small piece of a boundary. Right?
Yeah, avoidance is not a boundary. And then obviously what I've been talking about is our relationship with technology and setting boundaries there. And then there's this other piece around boundaries with tech companies and workplaces. So like environmental issues or climate change, I don't want to just situate this as a responsibility of the individual, because what we also need is for tech companies to step up and be more transparent about the ways in which they're sharing our data, and the ways in which they create technologies that are habit forming, that are kind of too compelling. And then also with workplaces, I think that a lot of people are in situations at their workplace where they feel like they have to be on all the time. So there's this corporate accountability piece, you know, that I also want to emphasize, because we also need to be thinking about bigger picture stuff, and it can't just be on us as individuals. It also has to be our workplaces who think about digital balance and digital mindfulness. So
I think that's really great. And hopefully employers who hear that will think about some of the practices in their workplace and some of the ways that they can encourage more mindfulness and create that. I know that, you know, I was in a hospital recently, and I was just shocked at, you know, how some staff members, you know, like doctors and nurses, are running around having to carry multiple phones and respond on different phones while listening to overhead speaker. And like there was so much going on them. And I think about healthcare and you know, sitting across from a physician who's now required to kind of log everything in on the computer while trying to have a conversation. Oncologist that I know out here who is really a great oncologist, he actually now has an assistant, and an intern comes into the room, and the intern does all the noting while he gets to have the interaction. And he just said, you know, I wasn't good at at charting online. I was terrible at it, but my patient satisfaction was really high. And so they came up with this way of managing that. And I think that many of us are struggling with how you do all of this and the expectations. So I think that's great for employers to think about if there's some ways that their practices can encourage digital mindfulness, or even give their employees a break, to take a mindfulness break. Like, okay, you've had to be on and online and checking everything in, and now you get like a mindfulness break where you can turn all that off for a while and take a break. And
because everyone's more productive when they get that.
Yeah.
We just
So
need
there's got to be ways to work with this, and I hope they consult with you. Do you do a little consulting on it?
I do consulting. I do, you know, I do digital mindfulness 101 presentations for organizations and for companies.
That's great.
You know, so coming in and just talking about like, what are some reasons that you might want to be more digitally mindful, and then what are those tips? I kind of walk people through how to do their own retreat. And I do consult. And also, you know, I just want to say to your listeners, watchers, if someone out there is struggling with their relationship with technology, call me. I will totally have a phone conversation with you. I'm not going to charge you to talk with you about resources. I mean, I'm just like steeped in this. So books, resources, tips. I really welcome people reaching out to me because I feel very passionate about this. So I recently partnered with a woman named Christina Crook. We're both named Christina. She wrote this book called The Joy of Missing Out. So JOMO rather than FOMO.
Right.
And I read her book. I loved it. I reached out to her to see if she wanted to partner to do some retreats. And so we've got some stuff coming up. There's a retreat in October at Hollyhock, which is it's on Cortez Island in BC, and people can find out about that on my website. And then the Mexico retreat is going to be at just a beautiful yoga retreat center. I've been there before. It's not super fancy. I mean, it's really lovely, but I wanted something that's somewhat financially accessible for people. And for that retreat, we're going to spend 5 days unplugged. And then we're going to have the last 2. We're going to give people back their devices, and we're going to help them practice digital mindfulness in real time.
Oh, this is so exciting.
So I'm so excited about that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that. This sounds wonderful.
And
thank you, Christina. I think that you have shared a wealth of information with us and have given us all tips that we can get started with and go even deeper with. And I really appreciate the generosity of what you're putting out there so that we can kind of tool up and take this more seriously and really look at some ways that we can help ourselves to just be more mindful around this. So thank you so much. This has been a great
You're welcome.
interview.